Hare Krishna. My name is Radhika Devi Dasi. I was fortunate enough to be born to disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who some of you may know and some of you may not know, is a pure devotee of God, of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna is the all-attractive one, the Lord who resides within our heart and without, and who loves us very much and is calling us to serve him and be happy in this world and to go back home, back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime. And Srila Prabhupada came to give us the science of self-realization, the path by which we can so easily and happily return back home, back to Godhead. So I was very fortunate to be born into the science of Krishna consciousness and be raised by parents who followed Srila Prabhupada's and still follow Srila Prabhupada's path. And this is my story of many of the trials and tribulations that I have been through, and now I have gotten to the point where I have right now. I wish I could say at the moment that it was a point where I'm feeling great joy and I've overcome so many obstacles, but in reality, at the moment, I am suffering a lot due to making some very poor decisions within the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, I started going into a healing crisis, and for many reasons, which I'm going to gradually give information about throughout a video series that I'm starting with this one. But just to recap quickly, I found myself in a very bad situation where I could barely move, I could barely talk, I didn't really understand what was happening, and I came to understand in retrospect it was due to the amount of trauma that I have suffered throughout my life, beginning at childhood and then going all the way up through rather recently. And I just kind of gave up. That's not my tendency. I'm a fighter, but I got to a point where I felt like the obstacles in my life were insurmountable, and I thought that I was meant to just not exist anymore or move on to my next body, because we understand we transmigrate from one body to the next. And I came to realize quickly after I gave up that that was not the truth, that I did not want to leave my body. I had so much to live for, especially my beautiful family, community, and mission, but that I had gotten myself into a very bad place. And so since then, I've been fighting very hard to come out of it. And in fact, I feel like throughout my whole life, no matter what I had gone through, I always felt God's presence and I always felt hope. And when I got to this point of just giving up, I started to no longer feel his presence. And that's when I started to realize how giving up and not listening to the guidance from within the heart and also from people around me, my well-wishers, was really a bad choice on my part to do. So I take full responsibility for where I am. I'm not a victim, but at the same time, I feel that to get back in integrity with the Lord, he is calling me to do this video series to share, in hopes that some of the realizations that I've had along the way, some of the things that the Lord has shown me about the abuse and the trauma that I've been through, is connected very deeply to also what many people are going through, what they have gone through, what they may not be aware of. And it could be something that hopefully will help some of you viewers who care to watch this. And that is my goal now, is to please the Lord, to come back in integrity with him, because without his presence in my heart, that's all that matters, is his presence in my heart, both within and without, and the association of the beautiful souls that he has put in my life, who are wonderful also devotees of the Lord. So please bear with me. This is the first time that I have done something like this, And there's a lot of fatigue that I experienced due to the trauma that I've allowed to happen, but I'm pushing through. So we'll just start at the beginning. As I said, I was born into the Hare Krishna movement. For the first several years of my life, my father was involved as a leader within the ISKCON movement, and I lived with my mother and my brother going to private school up until about the age of 5 or 6, at which point there was quite a bit of turmoil within my family life, and I was sent to England, to a school there, which actually I came to realize later was God's mercy upon me, that even though it was very difficult to be sent away from my mother, my father, my brother at the age of 6, I went by myself on an airplane with one other friend who was also my age, and we went to an ISKCON community in England. Went to what was called an ashram, where children were taken care of. We would get up early in the morning to do prayers. We had our school there. There was a lot of land. We would ride horses. We would learn our academics, and we were engaged in spiritual practices where we would be taught about Krishna. And it was very nice, although it was very, very difficult to be away from my family. And then I went back to the US for about a year. My mother remarried, and we went back to England. And again, that was nice, although it was difficult what I was going through in my personal life. Still, I had a lot of good childhood experiences. So after that, I went to secular school in the United States, and took quite some time. It was a shock to get back into school and see the sorts of things that the kids were doing, and the engagement between the girls and the boys, and the whole scene entering into teenage life. That was not something that I was accustomed to, but gradually became Americanized, I guess you could say. I stayed a vegetarian, and I was fortunate enough to have very good friends throughout that time. God always looked after me. Krishna always looked after me. And I graduated with top honors from my high school. I was salutatorian, very involved in school, had wonderful teachers who helped me in my personal life with different things that I was dealing with. And then I went to university and started studying management at University of Michigan. It was a very good experience. I was blessed with good intelligence. I had quite a large partial scholarship, and again, even though things were difficult in my personal life, I ended up living with my stepfather, who's a wonderful person, and had very good friends, as I said before. I found myself in a relationship with somebody I had met. I was working as a teller at a credit union, and just, I think, due to looking for more shelter and just kind of the American way, and not being strict to the principles that Srila Prabhupada gave us to protect us, which I realize now were so important. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and no gambling. He called these the 4 principles of freedom. And unfortunately, I broke from several of those, always remained a vegetarian. But as an American teenager, I dabbled in, what the other things were, what they mean, what was that experience, the social pressure around me, whatever the situation was. So I got involved in a relationship, and I ended up having that be where I went through a very deep tragedy, which I'm not going to go into right now, but it was a very heavy call back to my spiritual life, I guess you could say. I can just say briefly that I ended up having a child at the age of 22, and at 4 months he died, and it was a very sad situation. But again, I felt God's presence, and I felt that He had a little bit of karma to burn up. I was very clear about that. Karma, for I'm sure most of anybody who's watching knows, but it's basically just the reactions to whatever, as Jesus said, what we sow, so we shall reap. So whatever actions that we do, then we get the reaction for that. So I felt that having this child, he had a little bit of karma to burn before he went on to a better existence, and it was meant to get me to come back to my spiritual life because I was straying away from that. So I was very grateful, and I felt like God, Krishna, just, he healed my heart, even though it was very painful. I felt like he just pacified me throughout that whole experience, and I had so much support from parents and family and co-workers, and got through it fairly easily looking back. So after that, I decided, okay, that's it. I'm turning back to Krishna. This material world is very, very painful. It's very difficult, and I don't want to waste any more of my life. I never want to feel that kind of pain again. So we lived outside of our temple, which is what we call, for everybody knows what a temple is, where you pray for God. So I started going back to the ISKCON temple where I was, and started associating again with people there. And there were some people from school that I started seeing from when I was young, and they were visiting. I ended up marrying one of those Guru Coolies, as we call them, the fellow students who went to Gurukul, or a private school, and my life, adult life, started to unfold from there. So I had several beautiful children. Financially, we struggled for quite some time. We weren't set up before we got married, and just, didn't take the time to do that. We thought, well, Krishna will help us along the way. We're sincere, and he did. He definitely helped us. We've had so much support, but in retrospect, this wasn't the right thing to do. The thing to do was to get set up beforehand, and then welcome children in. But anyway, we got through, and we were blessed with beautiful children, and again, beautiful family. But I started, in addition to just the financial strain that we were under, as life continued, I started to develop some pretty intense health issues down the line, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I went to holistic healers, I went to acupuncturists, I saw Ayurvedic doctors, I did counseling, I saw people within the medical field, and just for years, what I was going through was affecting my energy level, my ability to be a present wife, a present mother, to work. I had worked pretty diligently. Of course, having children, that took the time and energy also away from working, which I was happy to do. But I had pretty strong energy up until this point where I just couldn't quite get a handle on why I was dealing with a particular recurring issue. So it went on for several years. It affected negatively my marriage, and again, my ability to work more than I was. For quite some time, I was working with my family's real estate company, and that was going well. And when this came on, I just suddenly had to stop working, and it was very, very perplexing. And things kind of started to spiral downward from there. It went on for years, just dealing with a recurring issue, until I got to a point where I started to understand that, I don't remember exactly the percentages, but we have a level of consciousness that we base our actions on, but beyond that, underneath that, most of the actions that we take are based on the subconscious, and that the body stores that subconscious and the experiences as children from childhood, as well as even experiences from previous lives. And these are what make up the body, that the body follows the mind, follows our desires, follows our previous karma. And it's been a real eye-opener for me to really understand how that has opened up, and the decisions and the actions that I made based on the subconscious that have gotten me to where I am today and to where my family is today, which is it's a lot of pain for all of us right now. So again, I take full accountability for that, but through the story of mine, again, I'm hoping that some of you who are watching will gain information so that you can make better decisions in your life. You can be awake to more of perhaps what's happening within your subconscious, or how trauma works, or a larger picture of what I understand now, as far as my child abuse also was a part of. So that's what ended up happening, is through a series of, again, just visiting lots of people, going through Landmark and couple seminars and other different types of healing. I was in so much pain and so much agony. I remember the weekend that it happened, I was in a seminar with a friend who was talking about the different types of roles that we play, whether we're hero, villain, or I can't remember what the third one is right now. But I was trying so hard to really take in what she was saying, but my physical body was in so much agony that I had to leave the seminar. And I went to a healer that I was working with. I just started working with. And I started to have the body recall child abuse. And as I started to uncover these memories of going through very horrible things when I was in private school, my body started to heal. So it's hard for me to talk about. I'm a very private person. For me to be sitting here making this video takes every ounce of courage and energy that I have. It's not something that I would have done on my own volition. But again, I'm doing it as an offering to Srila Prabhupada and to Gorni Tai, who are the representatives of the love of Godhead in this age that we're in right now, because there is such a bigger picture that is tied to all of this. I think for now, I'm going to end there, but I will be continuing on with this very vigorously and powerfully, and I hope that you'll, again, find something positive from what I'm saying that you can learn from, if nothing else, from my mistakes. Thank you. I will see you soon. Hare Krishna.